All right. All right. Peace and shalom, family. Peace and shalom. It's your brother, Divine Prospect, Kingdom Harbinger Ministries, back in the building as usual. Hit one. Let me know if the audio and visual is on point. Hit one. Let me know if the audio and visual is on point. All right. Now you got to forgive me. It's going to be a little noisy in the background because my family is here, but we're going to stay focused on the purpose of this particular session. Yeah, things are getting shook up, man. I've been saying what you see in the title for about 5 years now. I held this position about 5 years now on this position. I was familiar with it, but I still handled Yom Kippur as a set apart day that I was supposed to do something on, right? But for the past 5 years, the conviction was so heavy that I decided that I was going to come out and speak on it. So in 2021, 4 years ago, I did a video, a live stream where I spoke on it. And in 2023, I went into more detail about it, right? And that was 2 years ago. And this is 2 years later after the last live stream I spoke on it. And this particular live stream is really not an extended live stream. Is just pretty much here to kind of draw the line in the sand and give you some heads up. Some of you might think that I'm crazy, I'm bugged out, or whatever the case may be. That's fine. You know what I mean, I've been hearing that since I came into this community about 12 years ago. You know what I mean? So I don't mean nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? But somebody's got to do it, and I'm just a messenger, right? I'm not here to disrupt or disturb your faith. I am here to disturb your dogma. And I'm here to get you to think critically and see what's beneath the surface for a lot of things that we read and understand when it comes to the scriptures, Israelite culture, history, and our people, right? And our linkage to the aforementioned, right? So I put a title there, why you should not celebrate Yom Kippur. Why are you celebrating Yom Kippur? Now, some people were saying, oh, I'm doing it as a memorial. Okay. Some people were saying, well, I don't celebrate it because Yeshua HaMashiach, he's after the order of Melchizedek, and he's the high priest that worked in the heavenly sanctuary on my behalf. So that's why I don't do it. That's people may say that. But they won't deny that it's an actual set apart day in which you are to afflict yourself. Some people say, oh, we can't keep it because we outside the land. So you get a mixture of some of the above, right? However, Yom Kippur was never intended to be a national, public, or community set apart day. The laymen were never supposed to do anything in alignment with the priest. Yom Kippur, the name itself betrays it because that rendering is nowhere in the Hebrew Bible. There's no Yom Kippur. There's Yom HaKippurim and Yom Kippurim, but Yom Kippur is not in Torah. Not only is Yom Kippur not in Torah, we don't see Yom Kippur publicly celebrated anywhere in the Tanakh or Hebrew Bible. Interesting. So the question one has to ask is, where did the framing of Yom Kippur come from? Why don't we see the Israelites collectively ever partake in it by afflicting themselves and then taking the day off from their civil labors? You don't see these things. Interesting. And then we got to go and look at the cause. Well, why does Yom Kippurim or Yom HaKippurim, why does it even exist? Why is it even mentioned? Who was it for? So in order to understand this, what I'm going to do is give you a brief overview. And after I give you this overview, if there's anybody out there that disagrees, that would like to have a dialogue, discussion, or a debate on this, let me know. I am offering $100 on Cash App to have a formal, amicable discussion / passionate debate on whether or not we were to keep Yom Kippur, or if you should memorialize it and keep it today by afflicting ourselves and or taking the day off from work. I'm going to go through the compositional layers, the redactional elements, and the interpolated package that we find within our own Torah that misleads us to believe that we are to be involved with Yom Kippur. So, in this brief overview, I'm going to show you the initial intentions of Yom Kippur and how it developed over time. And I want to invite you to take some time to read the academic papers that I wrote in regards to this subject matter. I was speaking to one of our KHM members and our executive staff who asked me a question in regards to Yom Kippur, when it should be kept, etc. And I'm doing this because I got that request and I said, okay. I said, I've mentioned it before in the past. They said to me, well, can you, do a little video on it or do some more on it so that we fully understand why? Because this question is coming up a lot, and it is. I've gotten that question plenty of times from people. So I decided that I was not only going to do a live stream on it, I was not only going to do a video on it, I was also going to write. And if you know anything about me, if you're signed up for the Patreon, which you should be, www.patreon.com/divine prospect. If you're not signed up, you missed class. We had class yesterday on Tuesday. And what I did was I put a sample of the class on Patreon, and there's another sample of the class that's coming out on YouTube tonight at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm trying to show you what you're missing by not getting into class. There's so much depth in scripture that we are missing because we're only understanding the surface, and or we've been dissuaded via dogma from diving deeper, that I want to unravel, unveil, and reveal to you, so that way you can get precisely what the author is intended from the audience, which is going to be the divine inspiration coming from the author to the immediate audience, and we are the benefactors because now we have it in our possession, and as ours by birthright, that will enable you to get closer in your walk with Yah. But first, you got to understand what Yah's intention is. And if you don't understand that, then the type of relationship you can have with him is not going to be as deeply rooted as you would like. And then what happens is when the storms come, when the persecution come, when the enemy comes, or enemies, adversaries come, when people come with all types of wild and weird doctrines and so forth, when they're able to show you certain things in the scriptures that you never saw before, your pastor never taught you, your moray never taught you, the church never taught you, your congregation never taught you, your camp never taught you. And it makes you second guess whether or not this text is authentic and veracity, and has the veracity that you thought it did in order to maintain its state despite the attacks that come against it. You will find yourself out of this walk. So we dig wells, and I say this all the time. People say, Divine, why are you so deep sometimes? I'm so deep because the deeper the well you dig, the more water you're able to save and preserve when there's a drought. That could be intellectual conversations about scripture. That could be an emotional time in your life. That could be a persecution that's coming your way, or some other kind of issue you're facing, or whatever the challenge may be. You want to be able to have a deep enough well to draw from so that you can be sustained during seasons of drought. The problem is people only want the microwave surface level knowledge when it comes to scripture. Just tell me what this is. Tell me what that is. And it's unfortunate because if you are part of the Patreon, like I mentioned earlier, you'll see that I write tons of blogs, academic blogs. I write stuff. And the reason why I write it is because if you are a teacher, you are expected to have written published material. I have written published material outside of my Patreon, outside of social media, and then within social media. So I like to write because the best way that I can express my thoughts on a subject matter is through writing. Well, in this case, through typing, right, in 2025. So what I did was I created a collection of academic papers on Patreon, and I'm going to let you read it first before I publish it on academia.edu, on my academia.edu account. And I went through piece by piece, but because I realized that a lot of people do not like to read, or if they do read, they don't want to read a lot, I decided to truncate the papers. Now, the full form of the papers, which is one full paper, right, which is about 30, 40 something pages, is going to be on academia.edu. However, I gave the abridged version on Patreon, just so you can get the understanding and the essence of what I'm trying to convey, right? And you have the references and the sources to go back and check it out. So here, I'm not going to get too detailed because I do want you to read the paper, but I'm going to give you an overview. And I'm putting out the challenge. It's a $100 Cash App challenge. If anybody here wants to debate me on this subject matter, I will give you that opportunity tomorrow. If anybody here doesn't want to debate, but you know somebody who does want to debate, feel free to tell them to email us, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We'll put them on the channel and we'll have a discussion. Or if you know your moray has not taught you this, your pastor has not taught you this, your teacher has not taught you this, and you would like them to have the conversation with us, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. $100 is just for the time, right? You know, in times past, I used to offer $1,000 challenges. At one time, I even offered a $10,000 challenge, and nobody really grabbed that bread. So this time, I'm just starting off with $100, but we can go ahead and move it up. You know what I'm saying? I want to make sure that it's worth the while of whoever it is that wants to have this conversation, because I've been putting this challenge out for years, at least 3 years, and nobody has taken the challenge, because we're going to have to get into a variety of things: linguistics, philology, history, culture, textual criticism, and actually exegeting or performing midrash on the text. And this is going to involve looking at various styles, signatures, compositional layers, redactional elements, etc., that is in the stratum of the text. And we got to go really deep to see these things. Now, this is not to discourage anybody in regards to the text itself. The text is still divinely inspired. The text is still the word of Yah. But however, over time, man has done some stuff to it, but for reasons. I'm not saying using the doctrine of the lion, a pen of the scribes. No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is when we see the development and what's happening to the Israelite community, the reason why there is what we call the public ordinance in regards to Yom Kippur, right? Or Yom Kippurim, is to ensure that the people are working in alignment with the priesthood. This, therefore, keeps that fence around Torah. We start to see these early elements that find their way later on by the time we get to the first century. And then there's individuals like the Pharisees that are going back and forth with Yeshua in regards to some of these matters. But some of its elementary principles are found in things like Yom Kippurim. But Yom Kippur is not in the Bible. It's not there. The journey in dealing with this is going to take us first to the book of Exodus, right? So we're going to get to the book of Exodus. But again, if you want to read the academic papers collection that I put together, click on the link in the description below and check those out. And whoever it is that does want to challenge what I'm about to say, please read the papers first. All right, because what I'm giving you now is just a truncated version. And when we have a discussion, I'm going to get heavier and I'm going to get deeper. Pause. So I advise you to read the papers so you understand what you're walking into before we actually have the dialogue. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Let's start off our journey. All right. Again, I'll make this brief. I'm not going to be here too long. Right. Let's start off in the book of Exodus. I'm going to start off in the book of Exodus. All right. We're going to start off in the book of Exodus and start at Exodus chapter 30, verse 1. All right. Let me share my screen. And this is where our story begins. All right. All right. Let's make it large enough so everybody can see it. All right, Exodus 30, starting at verse 1, and this is where our journey begins. All right. Before we get started, let me give a couple of shout outs to see what's up in here. Shout out to HaKodesh Management, Shalom DB, Remarkable Ministries, Inc., Shalom, Sister Gail, Jaslyn Berry, Shalom, Gird Up Nation Ministry, Shalom, Scott Garrett Helly, Shalom, Shalom, my brother. Get back in touch with you at the end of this week. Shout out to Benjamin 1683, E3W, peace. Kieria 6855, shalom. Let me see. K, what up? See, on my side, there's like timestamps that's interfering with the name. So let me see. Chosen Cuts by Ty 7811, Mr. Jeshuron, shalom, Mr. Mookie, shalom, Shakur the Young Lion, shalom, Big Chief Prince Vision, shalom. I think that's everybody. If you want to shout out, just leave a message in the chat and I will shout you out. Let me move this out the way. All right. Okay, let's get back here. Let me also put another image. All right. So this here is going to be the series of academic papers. So you'll be able to look for this image and you'll find it. It's called Kingdom Harbinger Ministries presents Yom Kippur, De-Ritualizing and Interpolated Rite, presented by Divine Prospect. Okay. So this is, you'll find this if you go into the Patreon, you'll see it'll have this image associated with the papers in the collection. All right. All right. Okay. So let's start here. All right. Peace to Mac, the Messianic. Exodus 30. Verse 1 says, you shall make an altar on which to burn incense. You shall make it of acacia wood. Now, just so y'all know, burning incense on an altar is not exclusive to the ancient Israelites. This was also done in the ancient Near East by various priesthoods in various cultures in regards to bringing in the presence of the deity. The reason why you're burning the incense is because you're trying to invite or lure the deity by means of the scent of the incense. Okay. A cubit shall be its length, and a cubit its breadth. It shall be square, and 2 cubits shall be its height. Its horn shall be of one piece with it. You shall overlay it with pure gold, its tops and around its sides and its horns. And you shall make a molding of gold around it. And you shall make 2 golden rings for it. Under its molding on 2 opposite sides of it, you shall make them. And they shall be holders for poles with which to carry it. You shall make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. And you shall put it in front of the veil that is above the ark of the testimony, in front of the mercy seat that is above the testimony, where I will meet you. And Aaron shall burn fragrant incense on it. Every morning when he dresses the lamps, he shall burn it. And when Aaron sets up the lamps at twilight, he shall burn it. A regular incense offering before Yotewafeh throughout your generations. You shall not offer what? Unauthorized incense on it, or a burnt offering or a grain offering. Hold on, let me shift this. Okay. Or a burnt offering or a grain offering, and you shall not pour a drink offering on it. So here's the thing: you shall not offer any authorized incense on it, or a burnt offering, or a grain offering, and you shall not pour a drink offering on it. So, how do you desecrate the altar that is designed only for burning incense? Well, you'll burn the incense in opposition to the ordinance. So, let's say you're burning incense other than the fragrance in which is recommended, or the items that's recommended, or the ingredients which is recommended to burn. Number one. Number two, you do it outside of the time period that you're taught to do it here in the ordinance, according to Aaron and sons of Aaron, right? What they should be keeping in the Levites, right? Or you do these other things. You put a burnt offering, a grain offering, and you pour a drink offering. When you do all these things, what you're doing is you are violating this ordinance. Verse 10, Aaron shall make atonement on its horns once a year. With the blood of the sin offering of atonement, he shall make atonement for it once in the year throughout your generations. It is most holy to Yah. Key thing: Aaron shall make atonement on its horns. So the atonement annually for the priesthood in Israel is this right here. Verse 10. This is the theological underpinnings to what we would now call Yom Kippur. It's tied to the altar of incense. The altar of incense has to be working according to its design in order for that atonement to be accepted. That's very important. But your roots for Yom Kippurim, Yom HaKippurim, or Yom Kippur is right here in Exodus chapter 30, verse 10. That's Yom Kippur. That's what it's supposed to be. See that? You're supposed to have a sin offering that you give once a year for atonement on the horns of the altar. You see that? No burnt offering, no grain offering, and no drink offering, but a sin offering you're supposed to give. So what happens is the scent goes up from the incense, and it's supposed to go into the nostrils of the deity and invite the deity closer to examine what's on the altar, and you're giving a sacrifice for a sin offering. Now, just understand that, right? So check it out. This is where we start our journey. Next is chapter 30. Okay. This is Yom HaKippurim. If you see here in Exodus 30, chapter 30, verse 10, nothing to do with the nation of Israel. They're not involved at all with this. No public ordinance. None of that. This is your original Yom Kippur. But let's get a little further. Solomon, Israel, 35:25. Shalom, what's going on? Tahira, beloved, 63:63. Shalom, peace, sis, what's going on? All right, so let's keep it moving, right? So next is, I want to show you these passages. Leviticus chapter 1 is going to be your laws for burnt offerings. Leviticus chapter 2 is going to be your laws for grain offerings. Remember, these two offerings cannot be offered on that altar of incense. Only the sin offering can be offered there, right? Leviticus chapter 3, peace offerings. This has nothing to do with peace offerings either. Has nothing to do with it, right? Leviticus 4, sin offerings. Okay. And Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, speak to the people of Israel, saying, if anyone sins unintentionally, these are the sins that it covers. Unintentionally in any of Yah's commandments about the things not to be done and does any of them, if it is the anointed priest who sins, you see that? If it is the anointed priest that sins, thus bringing guilt on the people, see, that's the key thing. The priest is the one responsible for performing the propitiation of the sins of the people. He is the propitiation of the sins of the people. So you can't understand Yeshua, Melchizedek order, or anything in the New Testament text if you don't understand this first. So if it is the anointed priest, high priest, who sins, thus bringing guilt on the people, then he shall offer for the sin that he has committed a bull from the herd without blemish to Yah for a sin offering. Now we're getting somewhere. Now you're going to begin to see what is going on here. And I'm telling you, this is the rudimentary, or this is the primordial intention of Yom Kippurim. Not what you thought it was. Okay. So what divine is in the text? I understand it's there in the text. But we're going to go into that. In fact, I'm going to let you read the paper to get into the rest. I'm just walking you. It's a small journey. It's a small journey. Just walk with me. All right. Then it says, he shall bring the bull to the entrance of the tent of meeting before Yah and lay his hand on the head of the bull and kill the bull before Yah. And the anointed priest shall take some of the blood of the bull and bring it into the tent of meeting. And the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle part of the blood 7 times before Yah in front of the veil of the sanctuary. Remember the altar of incense, where it's at. And the priest shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar of fragrant incense before Yah that is in the tent of meeting, and all the rest of the blood of the bull he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offerings, that is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And all the fat of the bull of the sin offering he shall remove from it, the fat that covers the entrails and the fat that is on the entrails, and the 2 kidneys with the fat that is on them at the loins and long lobe of the liver, that he shall remove with the kidneys, just as these are taken from the ox of the sacrifice of the peace offering. And the priest shall burn them on the altar of burnt offerings. Now the question is, why are the kidneys being touched? The reason why the kidneys are being removed is to dissuade the priests from performing liver divination. Okay. All right. This is a whole nother thing, right? But let's keep going. And it says, just as these are taken from the ox of the sacrifice of the peace offerings, and the priest shall burn them on the altar of burnt offering. But the skin of the bull and its flesh, with its head, its legs, its entrails, and its dung, all the rest of the bull he shall carry outside the camp to a clean place, to the ash heap, and shall burn it up on a fire of wood. On the ash heap it shall be burned. Now, the text goes on to say, if the whole congregation of Israel sins unintentionally and the thing is hidden from the eyes of the assembly, and they do any one of these things that by Yah's commandments ought not to be done, and they realize their guilt, when the sin which they have committed becomes known, the assembly shall offer a bull from the herd for a sin offering and bring it in front of the tent of meeting. And the elders of the congregation shall lay their hands on the head of the bull before Yah. They shall lay their hands on the head of the bull, not goat, but on the head of the bull before Yah. Okay. And it says, and the bull shall be killed before Yah. Then the anointed priest shall bring some of the blood of the bull into the tent of meeting, and the priest shall dip his finger in the blood and sprinkle it 7 times before Yah in front of the veil. And he shall put some of the blood on the horns of the altar that is in the tent of meeting before Yah, and the rest of the blood he shall pour out at the base of the altar of burnt offering that is at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And all its fat he shall take from it and burn on the altar. Thus he shall do with the bull. As he did with the bull of the sin offering, so shall he do with this. And the priest shall make atonement for them with the bull, them, plural, for the people, and they shall be forgiven. And he shall carry the bull outside the camp and burn it up as he burned the first bull. First bull, it is the sin offering for the assembly. So we see right here what the sin offering for the assembly is. When the whole nation commits a sin unintentionally, then it's brought to their attention and they realize their guilt. They are to perform this. Now we're going to see this happen in the Tanakh. We're going to see this happen in Tanakh. And then this is for the people. Then this is for the priest. Always involving a bull. That's important. There's no goats here, but this is involving a bull. And we see initially in the altar of incense what has to be done. How you burn the offering, burn the incense. what offering to bring, etc., etc. Here in Leviticus chapter 4, it goes into more detail. Now, with all of this said and done, let's go ahead and jump into Leviticus chapter 10 so we can see what's going on in Leviticus 16. Now, Leviticus 23, Numbers 29, it's a little bit different, but we're going to see what's going on in Leviticus 16 a little bit by looking at Leviticus 10. The death of Nadab and Abihu. It says, now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it and laid incense on it and offered unauthorized fire before Yah, which he had not commanded them. And fire came out from before Yah and consumed them, and they died before Yah. Then Moshe said to Aaron, this is what Yah has said, among those who are near me, I will be sanctified, and before all the people, I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, that's uncle of Aaron, and said to them, come near, carry your brothers away from the front of the sanctuary and out of the camp. So they came near and carried them in their coats out of the camp, as Moses has said. And Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, it says, his sons, do not let the hair of your heads hang loose. Do not tear your clothes, lest you die, and wrath come upon all the congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning that Yah has kindled. So the key thing is what you see here about letting your heads hang loose, because as priests, their heads are supposed to be wrapped. And it says tearing your clothes. Why? Because these are mourning rites. So when somebody dies or they pass, typically you would shave your head and you would rent your clothes. In his case, since his head is already wrapped, he would let it down, let his hair down, and he would rip and tear his clothes. This is a sign of public mourning, and they are being told not to do it. That's why you got to understand what culture is, right? We go into some of this in our classes, right? And then it says, and do not go outside the entrance of the tent of meeting lest you die, meaning that we're taking them out. They were destroyed via a fire or flame kindled from Yah. Their bodies are unclean. What they did was highly disrespectful. We're putting them out there. Don't go out there to see them either. This is a hard thing for Aaron to do, because the text says, and Aaron held his peace. But I know that he felt some way internally. Yah sees the hearts of man. I know Moses knows his brother up to this point, and he knew that this was going to be a lot, right? So he's telling him, don't mourn them, because what they did, they're not worthy of a proper burial, right? Because remember, I said this before, in ancient Israel, if you burn a body or leave a body unburied, you are desecrating the dead. That's a dishonorable death. So in this case, since they've been burned with fire, they received a dishonorable death. And Yah spoke to Aaron, saying, drink no wine or strong drink, you or your sons with you, when you go into the tent of meeting, lest you die. Again, don't get drunk over this either, because when people lose people, and some of us know that even today in 2025, they get drunk and they try to numb the pain of that loss. And Yah spoke to Aaron directly and said, don't do that. I know it's a lot. Continue to hold your peace. I'm going to see you through it. But your sons was wilding. Your sons was wilding. All right. It reminds me of a associate of mine who passed. And at this time, I was a little older, so I wasn't doing no street stuff anymore. But he had passed because he stayed in the street doing stupid stuff. I was in my real early 20s, like 22 or something like that. And when I went to their funeral, pay my respects or whatever, I was cool with them. I wasn't really tight with them like that, but I was just cool. They was an associate, right? But the way they died was kind of violent. And I said, wow. When I went there and that person's father was there, he said, look, my son died, but I don't want you to mourn my son. And was like, what are you talking about? He said, my son was a demon. Now, that term demon time wasn't out at that time. But he said his son was a demon. He said his son was out there doing all types of craziness to other people, causing other people to lose their children, robbing people, right? Selling drugs. And I knew him for some of this stuff. You know what I'm saying? He was like Don't mourn him. And then he brought up this scripture, Leviticus 10. This is the kid's father. Now, the person that died, I think he was like 20 years old. He was young. He was 20, but he was a whole demon out there, right? But his father said, my son, even though he died, even though I'm his father, even though I'm still paying my respects, I'm not going to mourn my son, because my son died because he did something to somebody and it came back to him. And then he said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Yo, when I heard that at that time, I didn't understand it. I was mad, like, yo, how you going to disrespect your son, still your flesh and blood, etc. I didn't understand the spiritual nature of that. If you are living like a whole demon, you on demon time, and you harassing people, you are killing people, taking people's children from them, you selling poison to our people, you doing all type, robbing people, you a whole demon out there, you should not have an honorable death. The father was not the one that put the funeral together, but he was asked to partake in it because that was his dad. But his dad never held his tongue, and he kept it 100 stack. He said, look, I know some of y'all want to grieve because my son is dead, but my son was a whole demon out here. Okay, that's a side note. That's a whole side note. That's why when people ask me to do funerals, I said, what kind of life did this person live? Be honest with me. Because I turned down one offer because I learned that the person who died was a whole demon out here. I'm like, I can't do that. Can't do that. Can't do that. But that was the first time I heard those scriptures. And, I kind of grew up in church, but the church don't speak. They don't say this type of stuff in the church. So when he said that at 21 or 22, I forgot how old I was like, what is he talking about? I was like, that's probably not even the Bible. That's probably not even in the Bible. Because I was ignorant. I didn't know. You know what I'm saying? But I was like, as I got older and I looked back, I was like, wow, the father's gone now. So I can't like go back and say, wow, I think he might have been an Israelite too. I don't know. I think he had a beard, and I think he had fringes on. I gotta go back and see if I can find the pictures for that. But that might have been Yah dropping little things along the way to wake me up. Here, take that. Take that. A lot of times it's in retrospect. We can't go back and thank the vessels that Yah has sent our way, unfortunately, but we can still thank the source, which is Yah. So let's get back to this, right? So it says Moses spoke, and it says, let me see, verse 10. I'm gonna continue on what I'm saying. That was just a side note, just to kind of give you a sense. And shout out to my brother Six Fingers in the building. It says, you are to distinguish between the set apart and the common, and between unclean and the clean. And you are to teach the people of Israel all the statutes that Yah has spoken to them by Moshe. You understand? Stay focused. All right. This is a serious thing. Moshe spoke to Aaron and to Eleazar and Ithamar, his surviving sons, take the grain offering that is left on Yah's food offerings and eat it unleavened beside the altar, for it is most set apart. You shall eat it in a set apart place, because it is your due and your sons' due from Yah's food offerings, for so I am commanded. But the breast that is waved and the thigh that is contributed, you shall eat in a clean place, you and your sons and your daughters with you, for they are given as your due and your sons' due. Let's move on down. Then it says, from the sacrifices of the peace offerings of the people of Israel. You see that? Of the people of Israel. The thigh that is contributed and the breast that is waved, they shall bring with the food offerings of the fat pieces to wave for a wave offering before Yah, and it shall be yours and your sons with you as a due forever, as Yah has commanded. Now Moshe diligently inquired about the goat of the sin offering, and behold, it was what? Burnt up. Oh, hey, I don't know if somebody saw that yet, but the goat offering, why was it burned up? Who was burnt up? I'm gonna put a small pause right there. Because sometimes we read this stuff and we skip past stuff. Brother, goat offering was consumed already. It was licked up. It was burnt up. Shout out to my brother Yashar Napash 7670 in the building. What's going on? I guess this must be your YouTube handles. I'll just read that off anyway. I know most of y'all anyway, but I'm just saying. But yo, the GOAT. What happened to the GOAT? What happened to the greatest of all time? Huh? It was burnt up. And he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the surviving sons of Aaron, saying, why have you not eaten the sin offering in the place of the sanctuary, since it is a thing most set apart and has been given to you, that you may bear what? The iniquity. So this idea of a person being the propitiation for the sins of the people is already here in Torah, in Vayikra 10. This is not a new concept that the New Testament is just making up, right? Now, in regards to a person being martyred or killed, again, you go into the lives of the prophets and you go into all that history. That's a whole nother thing, right? But in regards to a priest bearing the iniquity of the people, he is to partake of the offering so that he bears the iniquity of the people. Okay. So then it says, of the congregation to make atonement before Yah, behold, its blood was not brought into the inner part of the sanctuary. You certainly ought to have eaten it in the sanctuary as I commanded. And Aaron said to Moshe, behold, today they have offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before Yah, and yet such things as these have happened to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would Yah have approved? And when Moses heard that, he approved. All right. And get some stuff up there. Let's see if I'm gonna take this out right now. I'm gonna read this. This is the source, so you can see it. Let me all of y'all should have this. All right. And it says this is let's go to, this is on page 196. These are the footnotes on the Leviticus 10 and 10 and 6. I'm gonna read these three footnotes for you, okay? 10 and 6. It says, do not let your hair become unkept and do not tear your clothes. Forbidden here are ancient Near Eastern mourning customs that would have adversely affected the purity status of Aaron and his surviving sons. I told you this is why they were told not to do it. 10 and 9. You and your sons are not to drink wine. All over the ancient Near East, wine and beer regularly served to the gods with their sacrificial meals. The idea that deities could become intoxicated by such beverages is reflected in the Ugaritic mythology and in the Babylonian epic of creation, the Enuma Elish, where partying gods make a momentous decision to exalt Marduk above other gods while they are under the influence. There is some evidence in extra-biblical literature of ritual intoxication amongst the priests. See also the note on Isaiah 28 and 7. The Hittite instructions to priests and temple officials recognize that drunken priests could cause disturbance or quarreling or could disrupt a festival. Rather than directly restrict alcohol use, however, these instructions mandate beating as punishment for obnoxious behavior and warn priests that they are accountable for proper performance of festivals, which implies the need for mental clarity. So that's one reason why they were told not to drink wine. And the second one I told you, because typically when a person loses things, they drink wine. For example, we see that Noah, after the flood, Noah goes and he drinks wine, gets drunk and intoxicated. We see a similar thing happen to Lot. When Lot is removed from out of Sodom, he goes, he drinks wine, he's intoxicated, right? So these are just examples of people tarrying at the wineskin, right? When things happen. And people do that today. That has not stopped. That's part of man's nature. That has nothing to do with just the Bible. That's just man's nature. That's what we do. We feel we need to numb the pain when we lose somebody, especially in a violent way. And I know personally, right? But I'm not going to get into details of that. Last thing, 10:17. Eat the sin offering. The purification offering absorbs the impurities that it was presented to remedy. When a great deal is absorbed, the offering is burnt. But on most occasions, the priest's eating of the offering is part of the purification process. Aaron's reluctance to eat the offering may be caused by the presence of the corpses of his sons, which add dangerous levels of impurity. A little bit of insight in regards to what's happening there. Nevertheless, we're seeing something develop until it fully matures in Numbers 29. Now remember, everything that I said to you, bring you up to this point. Exodus chapter 30, verses 1 to 10. Leviticus chapter 4, when we go into the sin offering, the details for the sin offering, keep that in mind. Then we go to Leviticus chapter 10, and we see this whole incident happening. Now, as a result of Exodus 30, Leviticus 4, Leviticus 10, now we get Leviticus 16, because you'll see between Leviticus 11, Leviticus 10 to Leviticus 16, there are 5 chapters of other ordinances. We know Leviticus 11 has to do with the dietary law. This is nothing to do with Leviticus 10. However, how does Leviticus 16 start? This is how we have to understand. Remember, what happened to the goat offering? It was burnt up. Mr. Mookie said, what book is that? Cultural Background Study Bible. Been pushing this for over 7 years. Think about 7 years, right? And again, if you want to understand the Bible, you also have to understand the ancient Near East. The Bible is not an isolate. It's not in a vacuum. It didn't fall from the sky. Okay? The Bible has loan words in it. The Bible has cultural infractions from other people groups in it. There's acculturated items in there. Cultural diffusion occurs in there. There is a pool of words that have semantic values and cognates in other cultures that open things up. There are place names that are foreign in the Bible. All these things indicate that the Bible was not written purely in Hebrew, purely in Aramaic. That's not true. There are idioms in there that come from other cultures. There are practices in there that come from other cultures. So unless you understand the ancient Near East, you don't understand the Torah. And when God tells the Israelites when they go into land, do not imitate the practices of the nations in there. Well, whatever the nations was practicing is what they were not supposed to do. That's like when I go into, should we shave our beards? Should you get a shape up on your beard? And this time I actually got a barber because I was in a rush. It's not my barber. And he cut a little more off than I wanted him to. So I ain't going back to. Anyway, nonetheless, he had a cool conversation with him, cool dude, but he didn't do a good job. Anyway, so in order to understand this, we have to do some studies in comparative cultures. So when we look at comparative, or do a comparative cultural analysis, looking at different cultures or sister cultures, you'll see that the Ugaritic culture has something called the Epic of Baal, and in the Epic of Baal, we see a situation in where El is mourning the death of his son Baal, and this is where the custom or the rite comes from that the Canaanites had practiced when it talks about marring the sides of their beard. So what he did was he shaved his beard, which is a no-no in our culture. You do not shave your beard. Trimming it, cutting it is different. You do not shave your beard. Not only he shaved his beard, he marred his face. He took a flint knife and he cut his face so that his beard would not grow appropriately. Therefore, it was disfigured. That is what we are not to do. And that is what the text is telling us we should not do. That's important. So you have to understand the ancient Near East, the customs, the temples, the place names, something about those cultures when it comes to the Bible. When we go into our classes, right now we're doing Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and I show you why understanding the ancient Near East is important in putting the Bible and fixating it in its proper position. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Shout out to AZ Bound 3 in the building. All right. All right. Yes, it's a mourning. So remember, El did it because it was a mourning ritual. He was mourning the loss and grieving over the death of Baal. Baal was killed by Mut. the god of death, right? So that's why he did that, and that myth is ritualized, and it is the justification or theological justification why the Canaanites practiced that, and why Yah told the Israelites not to do it, because they have their own ethnogenesis. They have their own ethnic beginning that makes them distinct and set apart from all the other nations around them. All right. So let's get into Leviticus 16. Remember I said, when we go to Leviticus chapter 11 to chapter 15, has nothing to do with the rest of the story. But when we go to Leviticus 16, it picks up on the story. Interesting. So let's go there and see the continuation of this story. Read this. Leviticus 16, Yah spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they drew near before Yah and died. And Yah said to Moshe, tell Aaron your brother not, you see this? So this right here is telling you, you're about to do a rite, but the theological justification of that rite is from Leviticus chapter 10. And Yah spoke to Moshe, tell Aaron your brother not to come at any time into the holy place, set apart place inside the veil before the mercy seat that is on the ark, so that he may not die. For I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. But in this way, Aaron shall come into the set apart place with a bull from the herd for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. He shall put on the holy linen coat and shall have the linen undergarment on his body, and he shall tie the linen sash around his waist and wear the linen turban. These are the set-apart garments. He shall bathe his body in water and then put them on. And he shall take from the congregation of the people of Israel 2 male goats, it says now. So wait, for the people of Israel, 2 male goats for a sin offering and 1 for a ram offering. Now, if he's taking these offerings, these 2 male goats, this key thing, listen. Remember what we read when we was in Leviticus chapter 4. If the congregation sins unintentionally, what offering they are to give. But now we see the introduction of the male goats. Remember, the prior male goat that was supposed to be there, was offered, was burnt up. That is significant. I don't want to get too much into that. It's in the papers, but I don't want to get too much in that. But that is significant. If you get it, you get it. But now he's like, all right, now get 2 male goats for a sin offering and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Key thing, 2 for sin offerings. What do you do to sin offerings? You sacrifice them. But watch this, verse 6. Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering for himself and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. Again, in alignment with what we see in Leviticus chapter 4. Then he shall take the 2 goats and set them before Yah at the entrance of the meeting. Here we go. Now, remember the verse 5 says, and he shall take from the congregation of the people of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering. We know what's supposed to happen with the sin offering. But now it says, Aaron shall offer the bull as a sin offering for himself and shall make atonement for himself for his house. Again, alignment with Leviticus 4. But then he shall take the 2 goats and set them before Yah at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Now this is where things get strange. We know what a sin offering is. I just went over it with you. And Aaron shall cast lots over the 2 goats. So now you casting lots. Okay. 1 for Yah and the other for Azazel. And Aaron shall present the goat on which the lot fell for Yah and use it as a sin offering. But the goat on which the lot fell for Azazel shall be presented alive before Yah to make atonement over it, that it may be sent away into the wilderness of Azazel. Where's this at in regards to sin offering? Somebody would have to show me in Leviticus chapter 4 that this is part of a sin offering ritual. Where's this at in Leviticus chapter 4? We just went over it. Where is this at? We read it for sin for the priests and for the people. There was no casting lots. There was no letting this goat live, because it can't be a sin offering if you're letting it live. So what in the world is this? There's some strange stuff right here. Okay, this is why you got to read the papers. I go into detail in the papers, and the papers are short. Trust me, I make sure I kept them short, so nobody will complain about reading. Please read them. All right. If you want to read them, click on the link in the description. Click on the collection. You can either check out the collection or sign up for the Patreon, and you can check them out as well. Okay, this is deep. And Aaron shall present the goat on which the lot fell for Yah and use it as a sin offering. But wait, I thought both of them were supposed to be sin offerings. It says in verse 5, and he shall take from the congregation of the people of Israel 2 male goats for a sin offering. Now we shift where you're letting one of them go away to a deity. Wait, hold on. Hold on 1 second. There's a whole controversial thing in regards to Azazel. You're giving a deity a sin offering? Whoa, that's deep. And your KJV, it says scapegoat. Ain't no word as scapegoat in the Hebrew. But there's a word for scapegoat in the Greek. The book of Enoch, first Enoch, what we have today, the earliest written version of Enoch goes back to the Grecian captivity. And the Greeks had ancient scapegoat rituals. That's where that concept comes from, the scapegoat. Now, the concept is way before the Greeks, but the practice or the rite, the Greeks got it. So what I'm proposing to you is, and again, I prove it in my papers, that this element of Azazel is an interruption in the flow of the narrative, or in this case, in the ordinance, in the prescription. This is where things start to shift. Because what happens is, if you put the sin of the people on that goat that's supposed to be butchered and sacrificed, and you send that off, guess what? That goat can possibly return. Some legends say the goat falls off of a cliff and dies. It gets sent out to Duadel into a desert or whatever the case may be, but that goat can always return. Somebody can mistake it as a lost goat and bring that goat back into the congregation. When you do that, guess what you do? Now the entire congregation is back in sin. Somebody could take that same goat and offer it. So what do you have to do? Well, you got to get the people involved. If the people are not working on that day, there's no means for this goat to come back into the community, because everybody will be resting and the gates will be closed. All right. I don't know. I don't know who's listening. I'm just trying to give you some information. Shout out to Israelite for Peace 7246. Oh yeah, brother. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Casting lots. Man, let me go find my book. I think it's on a Patreon. Let me see something real quick for you, Gavin. Hold on 1 second, brother. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. I couldn't find it, but I'm gonna grab it and I'll share it with you, brother. All right. So what I'm saying here is this, right? Instead of people pointing out these anomalies, the dogma causes them to say, "Oh yeah, that's cool. Let me explain that." And they try to give you some kind of deep meaning, some kind of glossed over explanation for it, instead of pointing out, like, wait, this looks like an interruption in the narrative. What in the world is this? I call it for what it is. I already know what Yah instructed in Leviticus 4. I already know in Exodus 30, the law of incense. and the atonement that is made annually. That Exodus 30 is the initial Yom Kippurim, not Yom Kippur. That's not in the Bible. I see the incident in Leviticus 10. I understand in Leviticus 4 what the sin offering is. But now I get to Leviticus 16 and things shift. Interesting. Okay. And it says, but the goat on which the lot fell for Azazel shall be presented alive before Yah to make atonement over it, that it may be sent away into the wilderness. Aaron shall present the bull as a sin offering for himself and shall make atonement for himself and for his house. He shall kill the bull as a sin offering for himself. Remember Leviticus 4. So he's just following Leviticus 4. There's nothing special here. And he shall take a censer full of coals. Remember that? The censer that we mentioned in Exodus 30. And it says, before the altar of Yah, 2 handfuls of sweet incense beaten small, and he shall bring it inside the veil and put the incense on the fire before Yah, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is over the testimony, so that he does not die. Why? Because when the presence of Yah shows up, it must be veiled with incense. That's why now when you pray, when prayer can be offered as incense, your prayers have to be pleasing to Yah. This is why he don't hear the prayers of someone whose heart's full of iniquity. Psalm 66. Because that's strange fire. That's unauthorized incense. That's mixing the clean with the unclean. See, what happens when you're in Judeo-Christianity, people don't sanctify the clean and unclean. Your prayers have to be a sweet savor and a fragrant aroma to the deity. That is how you invite his presence amongst you. The same way that a servant entreats a king by offering him gifts first, so the king can hear his matter. I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to read this real quick from the Psalms. I'm gonna get this for you. Let's go to Psalm 19. Let's go to Psalm 19. I was supposed to be off by now, but I'm still going. Psalm 19. All right, let's take a look at this. Let's jump down to verse 14. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. The same way that the incense, when it's burnt, has to be acceptable and authorized by Yah. The way that we pray, I tell you about formulaic prayer. I have a whole Patreon post about the ACTS system of prayer. And I give you more nuanced detail. Go check it out. Use Nehemiah 1 as an example of that, right? The way that we pray has to be in such a way that it is pleasing to his sight, that is acceptable to him, that it's like a sweet, savory aroma to the deity. Okay. Okay. All right. Let's go to Psalm 14. Oh, excuse me, 141 and verse 2. It says, oh yeah, I call upon you. I invoke you, he's saying. This is a whole process. Hasten to me. Give ear to my voice when I call you. Let my prayer be counted as incense before you, and lifting up my hands as the evening sacrifice. This is what you find in Vayikra. So he's showing us a way to invoke that presence that is later called the Shekinah glory. That's not in the Torah. To invoke that presence of Yah upon the mercy seat, they have to burn the incense. Well, we can invoke his presence as well if we create an altar, not a physical one. We create a figurative altar for him to come and reside so he can speak with us and we can speak with him. You can hear from Yah. if you know what to do. So let's go back. Let's go back. Let's finish this up. Then we get a little too deep here. All right. So here he's being told what to do in regards to what? In regards to the offering, the sin offering, the altar, the incense. And he shall take, verse 12, take a censer full of coals of fire from the altar before Yah, and the 2 handfuls of sweet incense beaten small, and he shall bring it inside the veil and put the incense on the fire before Yah, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is over the testimony, so that he does not die. And he shall take some of the blood of the bull and sprinkle it with his finger on the front of the mercy seat on the east side, Kedem, and in front of the mercy seat he shall sprinkle some of the blood with his finger 7 times. Verse 15, then he shall kill the goat of the sin offering. Wait. The goat of the sin offering. Which one are you talking about? Oh, the goat, singular, of the sin offering. This is the one that's offered to Yah. He says that is for the people, and bring its blood inside the veil, and do with this blood as he did with the blood of the bull, sprinkle it over the mercy seat and in front of the mercy seat. Now, the interesting thing here is, remember, when we read about Leviticus chapter 4, when the nation sins unintentionally, they bring a bull. We don't see a goat in Leviticus chapter 4 being offered on behalf of the people. But here we do. But we see in Leviticus 10 that the goat was burnt up. It couldn't be offered as a sin offering, nor could it be zabach, sacrificed and eaten and consumed to bear their iniquity. It was licked up. And that's because that offering was not accepted. But here we see something developing here, very interesting. So here, again, still in Leviticus 16, here it's saying that the goat that was offered, even though 2 of them are supposed to be for sin offerings, only one is actually being used for a sin offering. The other one is being sent to another god somewhere else. Okay, that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other conversation, but it's in the papers, right? Then here now, a goat is being used in place of the bull for the sacrifice of a sin offering for the people. Then he said, then he shall make atonement for the holy place because of the uncleanness of the people of Israel and because of their transgressions, all their sins. And so he shall do for the tent of meeting, which dwells with them in the midst of their uncleanliness. No one may be in the tent of meeting from the time he enters to make atonement in the holy place until he comes out and has made atonement for himself and for his house and for all the assembly of Israel. Then he shall go out to the altar that is before Yah and make atonement for it, and shall take some of the blood of the bull and some of the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar all around. Remember, we saw Exodus 30. We know what animal was supposed to be, the blood was supposed to be put on the horns of the goat. The horns of the altar, which was the bull. And it says, and he shall sprinkle some of the blood on it with his finger 7 times and cleanse it and consecrate it from the uncleanness of the people. And when he has made an end of atoning for the set apart place in the tent of meeting and the altar, he shall present the live goat. This is the one that's supposed to go into the wilderness. And Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat. Wait, when we see him placing his hands on the head of something, it's always the bull. But now the goat is here. And now the laying of hands that he did for an offering for Yah, now they're laying his hands on the goat. Now, this is interesting. This is a whole shift in the entire paradigm to this point, that now you are doing a similar ritual that you do to Yah with the bull for the people in Leviticus 4. Now you're doing it on a goat and you sending it out. Bro, this is some next level type stuff. And it says, and Aaron shall lay both his hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the iniquities of the people of Israel and all their transgressions and all their sins. Ascribe all sin to Azazel. And he shall put them on the head of the goat and send it away into the wilderness by the hand of a man who is in readiness. The goat shall bear all the iniquities on itself to a remote area, and he shall let the goat go free in the wilderness, where Azazel was buried under rocks in the desert, in everlasting chains in darkness. And then we get from the New Testament until the day of judgment. Then Aaron shall come into the tent of meeting and shall take off the linen garments that he put on when he went into the set apart place and shall leave them there. And he shall bathe his body in water and a holy place, this mikveh, right? and put on his garments and come out and offer his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people and make atonement for himself and for the people. And the fat of the sin offering he shall burn on the altar. And he who lets the goat go to Azazel shall... Wait. So the same thing that Aaron is doing to honor and respect Yah after he performs his right and his duty, the person who lets the goat go for Azazel is doing the same thing. Why is there a degree of reverence for Azazel? This is next level. Ain't no scapegoat in Hebrew. We're dealing with this. This is so the LXX and the English tries to cover up this word Azazel. And there's even different word puns, different play on the word Azazel that's used again to cover it up. But Azazel, what in the world is you doing there? Who is you? Why are they giving stuff to you? Why are they treating you with a degree of reverence, which is wild work? And it says, in the fat of the sin offering he shall burn on the altar, and he who lets the goat go to Azazel shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp. And the bull for the sin offering and the goat for the sin offering, whose blood was brought in to make atonement in the holy place, shall be carried outside the camp. Their skin and their flesh and their dung shall be burned up with fire, and he who burns them shall wash his clothes and bathe his body in water, and afterwards he may come into the camp. And it shall be a statute to you forever, that is in the 7th month, on the 10th day of the month, you shall afflict yourselves and shall do no work, either the native or the stranger who sojourns amongst you. So now the people are being involved. Why? For on this day shall atonement be made for you to cleanse you. We don't see nothing like this in Leviticus 4. And we see the only reason why this is being done is because of Leviticus 10. The people had nothing to do with Leviticus 10. That was a priestly matter. It had nothing to do with the public. Nothing to do with the public. Okay. For on this day atonement shall be made for you to cleanse you. You shall be clean before Yah from all your sins. It is a Sabbath of solemn rest to you, and you shall afflict yourselves. It is a statute forever. So now, key thing, remember, this particular ordinance is dealing specifically with rites that the priest has to perform. And all of a sudden, starting at verse 29, now the people get involved. Why are the people being involved? Nothing in Leviticus 4 says when the people had to give that offering for unintentional sins that they had to do anything. That's a priestly job. Why are the people being involved now? Why are the people being involved now? This has nothing to do with them. This is because of what Aaron's sons did. But now the people get involved. Now the game changes. Okay. All right. So let's wrap this up. All right. And the priest who was anointed and consecrated as priest in his father's place shall make atonement wearing the holy linen garments. He shall make atonement for the holy sanctuary, and he shall make atonement for the tent of meeting and for the altar, and he shall make atonement for the priests and for all the people of the assembly. And this shall be a statute forever for you. Anytime you see this word statute forever, that's another signature, another hand or group that's coming in there and doing that. See that portion right here, when we start to involve the people, when we say compositional layers, that means this text is a composite of different contributions. When you see the statute forever, that is a later contribution. Anytime you see this phrase statute forever in Leviticus, it is a later contributor. Because when you look at the narrative involving the people, has nothing to do with this matter with the priests. And then we get the infamous Leviticus chapter 23, right? We get right here. Day of Atonement. And Yah spoke to Moshe, saying, now on the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement. It shall be for you a time of set-apart convocation, and you shall afflict yourselves and present a food offering to Yah. Wait, food offering. Wait, food offering? Now we get some more information that's just coming out of nowhere, developing. And you shall not do any work on that day, for it is a day of atonement to make atonement for you before Yah your power. So the atonement is done by the priest. Oh. The atonement is done by the priest. So if the atonement is done by the priest, then why what does the people have to do with that? Then it says, whoever is not afflicted on that day shall be cut off from his people, and whoever does any work on that very day, that person I will destroy from among his people. You should not do any work. It is a statute forever. Remember, I told you this phrase, a statute forever. Another compositional layer with a redactor that's coming in and adding that. We see these layers. The language changes, the narrative is broken up, the prose is interrupted. And then now stuff is levied onto the people. Something that only involved the priests, now a scribe has laid it upon the people. The burden of the priesthood is now laid on the people. The burden of the priest is now laid upon the people. Let's go to our final verse. And again, if you want all the linguistic cues, if you want to see the prose interruptions, you want to see the compositional layers, the redaction elements, the full interpolation, I have charts and everything. I break everything down for you in detail so you can see these compositional layers, these various signatures into the text, and how that these portions where it's levied onto the people become a later. See, the interesting thing is when we go into the New Testament, Mark chapter 7, for example, there becomes this process of ritualized washing of hands. Well, that process is here in Torah for the priests to do. The priests are to wash their hands and feet before they put their garments on and they go in to perform their rites and duties before Yah in the sanctuary. That has nothing to do with the people. But by the time we get to Mark 7 in the first century CE, now the people have to do it. These redactors are post-exilic. Okay. We're just trying to restore you back to the original. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Let's wrap this up here and I'm going to close up. All right. Let me see how much time we have. Where we at? Hour 21 minutes. All right. I got 8 minutes and I'm done. Got to walk. 29 verse 7, on the 10th day of the 7th month, you shall have a holy convocation, afflict yourselves. You shall do no work, but you shall offer a burnt offering to Yah, a pleasing aroma, 1 bull from the herd, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old. Now we got some additional instructions. And one thing you know about the book of Numbers, it is a book of provisions. It's a book of amendments. The book of Numbers is a whole bunch of ordinances and statutes were amended in Numbers. Now, what we have in Leviticus 16 and 23 is being amended by the book of Numbers. And it says, and their grain offering shall be of fine flour mixed with oil, 3/10 of an ephah for the bull, 2/10 for 1 ram, 1/10 for each of the 7 lambs. Also, 1 male goat for a sin offering, besides the sin offering of atonement, and the regular burnt offering and its grain offering and their drink offerings. Again, additional ordinances are now added to this Day of Atonement. This is a priestly matter. It has nothing to do with the people. Why are the people getting involved with the priestly matter? Why is part of the ritual and rite that the priest was supposed to perform now levied onto the people? The people had nothing to do with that. The reason why you have Leviticus 16 is because of Leviticus 10. The people were not involved in that. They had nothing to do with that. But it's a way of creating an ecumenical community, meaning that now that the priests, they function a little different. And it's believed also that, remember, when they came back from captivity, they found a book. Oh, there's a book here. Oh, Ezra and Nehemiah time, they found a book and had to go into the book and set everything according to the book. It's possible that these things were added without the full knowledge of, or was done, and this is one of the propositions, because the priests are now involving the people to keep the people close-knit in line with the priesthood, because they feel that the people are given too much liberty, they're going to violate. So they got to be given a fence around Torah, because the people can't be trusted. So you create this fence around Torah. gone into detail about this in the past by citing the works of several rabbis and sages that talk about this fence around Torah. I pulled these elements out in the Mishnah and showed it to you. I could do a paper on that too if you want all those details as well. But that's the key thing. So I stop here at number 29. And my challenge to anybody out there that disagrees with me, number one, find Yom Kippur anywhere in the Bible for me, book, chapter, verse. 2, show me in the rest of Joshua to Malachi, the people doing this. Show me Day of Atonement and the people afflicting themselves as a nation publicly. The people cease from working, treating it as a Sabbath. Show me that in the rest of the Tanakh. Anytime you see something that may allude to an annual atonement rite, it never involves the people. Okay. $100 Cash App is on the table for anybody who wants to pick up the challenge and have this discussion with me. I would love to have this discussion with you. Now, for those of you who are in the who subscribe to the New Testament, that's on the table for you too. We're going to talk about Yeshua. We're going to speak about that because by the time we get to the 1st century CE, what we have there in Leviticus chapter 16, Leviticus 23, and Numbers 29 is in practice. But it's not a pre-exilic statute. It has nothing to do with the people. Hence why you should not celebrate, keep any Yom Kippur ritualistic practice, such as ceasing from work, such as afflicting yourself, specifically on a day that you set apart for Day of Atonement or Yom Kippur. People gonna be like, oh, Devon, you're gonna cause people to go and sin. Listen, I'm saying this is the justification I'm giving why I'm not doing it, and maybe why you shouldn't do it. But if you're convicted and you feel that you should do it, you need to do it, then go ahead and do it. But remember, the priesthood is not there no more. You have to do this in conjunction with the priesthood. The priesthood ain't there no more. So even on that strength, they're not there no more. Well, I want to do it as a memorial. Okay, well, you can do it as a memorial. But if you're doing it as a memorial, the priest is still not there. And I'm showing you that you shouldn't even be doing it at all. But I'm going to be cut off and y'all going to destroy me. That's the dogma in you. Trying to get you to identify the compositional stratum in the text. So you understand, looking at the sediment layers, what was the original and what developed over time. Okay. But to those of you who insist and say, Devon, I care not about what you just said. I care not about it. I don't care about it. When is Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, according to your calendar? I want to keep it anyway. There's some that will say that. So I say, okay, if that is what you would love to do, get you a calendar. And on the calendar, you'll be able to see when it is. So today is Wednesday, October 15th, right? So we're right here. This is the day portion. Be going on to the evening. So it'd be from evening to evening. Also, another thing, that evening to evening, that is a special instruction that is nowhere else in the entire text in regards to any of the set apart days. And the reason for that is because evening to evening was an unusual Sabbath. Sabbath was from sunrise to sunset, you don't work. But now you extend it to the evening because part of the ritual involves an evening task, a morning task, and an evening task. So as long as the priest is doing this work, then you got to stop what you got to do. But that evening to evening is language there that is very distinct from the other set apart Sabbaths you're supposed to have on the feast days. Very interesting language. Again, another signature of a later redactional entry. Okay. When were things changed, the sister said? Excellent question, sis. Excellent question. I'll create a timeline for y'all. I mentioned some of it in the paper, but I'll create a timeline for y'all so that you'll know exactly at what point in time. But when things began to change, this happened after the Babylonian captivity, when the Jews were released while they were in the Persian captivity under the Cyrus decree that we get from the Cyrus cylinder. They were released to their own cognition, and they were told, you have the right, we'll give you freedom of religion. Just pay your tariffs, fees to us. Listen to the satraps of your region, and you can practice whatever you want to practice. So this began in the post-exilic period, starting with, so the parts that extend to the people, that occurred during the Persian captivity. The part with the Azazel goat situation started around the Grecian captivity. And Yom Kippur itself started post-70 CE. That term Yom Kippur, post-70 CE. And it all rolls downhill into this big avalanche until we get this huge snowball that people celebrate today called Yom Kippur. What you don't realize is a whole falsehood for people to celebrate, and it was only reserved for the priests because of Leviticus 10 and the violation on Exodus chapter 30. Okay. That was just a shortened version of it. Make sure you get you the calendar. Click the link below to get you a calendar. All right, so you can see details on the left of the Moedim and actually see it amongst the, you have the Gregorian calendar, and then you have Yah's calendar laid on top of that. And once we hit Bull, which is the 8th month, find out 1 Kings chapter 6, all the feast days should end. Should be done with everything by Bull. Okay. All right. Okay. Tuvi Yah Yisrael says that's not right. And says, SMH, another one bites the dust. I don't know what you're referring to. Are you referring to what I shared? Or are you talking to somebody in the chat? Can you please speak clearly without the parables and parabolic language? I just want to know clearly, are you referring to me? Are you referring to somebody in the chat? I just would like to know. Again, the $100 challenge is still on the table. If anybody out there can show me where the portion of Yom Kippur, well, first show me Yom Kippur in the Hebrew, in the Tanakh. The second one is show me where the people are keeping the portion that relates to them on Yom Kippur. And then show me the entire ritual as it's explicitly laid out in Leviticus 23, well, Leviticus 16, Leviticus 23, and Numbers 29, anywhere in the rest of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible. That's what I would like. That's what I would like. My brother, Tuvi Yah Yisrael, please make it clear before we leave. We on time. We on time now, so I'm gonna end it off right there. All praise to the Most High, Yah. Go to the Patreon, www.patreon.com, www.patreon.com// Divine Prospect. When you go on there, sign up for one of the tiers so that you can get access to this collection. You can check out these articles, but you also need to get in class so we can show you the methodology on how to research. So what I just did, when I showed you what I just did, we teach you that in the class. You're going to learn this in the class. Sign up for the class. It's on the $50 subscription tier. Not only do you get access to the class, you get access to everything that's on Patreon. There's tons of resources. We even have a pinned post that shows you some of those benefits you get immediately when you sign up to Patreon. We have over 1,215 posts on there. I have my academic blogs, my academic papers. I have exclusive video content that's not shown here on YouTube. We have language courses. If you want to learn Hebrew, Aramaic, Greek, You want to learn Syriac, you want to learn Arabic, you want to learn Akkadian. We have all that on there as well. We have access to over 600 books and over 280 articles. Like if you really want to get entrenched, we got all of that on there. We give you access to paid websites that you don't have to pay a dime for. You get access to websites. We talk about health on there. We talk about a myriad of things, ancient Near East, survival and preparation, nation building, all that's on the Patreon. It's the best repository that we have in our community for culture, for community, and autonomy. All praise to the Most High. Just like when I had a discussion last Friday, which was a great discussion with that brother Amaru Day. And we're going to have our next discussion coming up soon, where I'm going to tear apart Enlil, but I'm going to give him the opportunity to show me that Enlil is Yod Hewafe. It's going to be fun. But the way that I created that PowerPoint, which you can get access to on the Patreon, is part of our methodology, what we call our inductive research methodology. We have a 7-step methodology that we use to examine the text and get all this understanding that I'm sharing with you right now. At 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, I have a sample of the class. It's about 10-minute sample that's going to be on this YouTube channel for you to check out the class. I've given you samples of the class so you can examine its substance and see if it's something that you would like to partake in. You can only benefit from it. It will never take away from anything. I'm not teaching you what to believe. I'm just telling you what the text says. Then you can interpret it and believe what you want from there. But at least know what the text says and what the author intended for his immediate audience in the time period in which it was written. You got to understand these things. So sign up for the Patreon, www.patreon.com/Divine Prospect, so you can get in class. I will give you a sample of it because I already gave you 2 samples already. I'm giving you another sample of it so you can see what we discuss and how deep we go. And you'll be able to see the text from a perspective that you could have never imagined before. All praise to the Most High. I wish somebody gave me these classes years ago, about 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I would save so much time and so much error in going down the wrong path. I had a methodology at the time, but it was through a Christian lens. And that's not unbiased. What we give you now is something that was not available in our community the way it is until now. And the reason why Yah is allowing us to have these discussions is because we don't have a lot of time. Y'all see what's going on. The government shutdown is still occurring. People are still affected and afflicted by that. We are creating a fund for the government shutdown so that if anybody here, anybody you know, is being affected or afflicted financially because of lack of employment, because interruption in SNAP benefits, etc., we will be here to help to provide for the community like we did during COVID. And we will speak out against these atrocities that's occurring upon our people because we are feeling the biggest brunt of the force. We are getting the shortest end of the stick. So we have to stick together more than ever. Hence why we need these Goshens for autonomy. And we can self-preserve ourselves because this is Jacob's trouble. And it's only going to get more intense from here. This is year 1. You got 3 more years. You're about to see what's going to go down. Mark my words, put a pin on it. So get everything you can get now to get close as you can to Yah and prepare for what's about to come with you and your family. We have all these details on the Patreon, and we discussed it on this channel as well. All right, family. Thank you for watching. I appreciate y'all. That's correct, Sister Tahira. Saying when people lost their jobs during COVID, we created a letter. And we saved 120 people's jobs during COVID. 120 people could have lost their jobs. So we see as the watchman, the sword coming. Pray to Yah. Yah tell us what to do. Yah gives us the solution. We say, okay, here you go. Solution works. So not only did we have the religious accommodation letters, we also had the COVID fund. We also created a group where parents who had children who were older but still had like clothes, shoes, toys, or whatever, had an opportunity to give it to other parents that were in need. We respond as we see the sword coming. This is why I don't get involved and talk about all the latest trends. I don't do all that. People do that to boost their viewership. To me, that's a distraction. Let those distractions distract the world while we behind closed doors, we get ready for what's about to come. That has nothing to do with us. That's part of prophecy. It's supposed to happen. Mind your business and preserve and protect what you have right in front of you. You, your family, your walk, and everything that's necessary to make it through these troubling times. Okay, family. I love you, family. Those of you that want to keep Yom Kippur, it begins this evening at sunset and is all the way to the following evening. Y'all go ahead and take your day off from work so you're not working on that day. Y'all go ahead and afflict yourselves by fasting and beating yourselves up, whatever you want to do on that day. But me and my household, we're not keeping that because we understand the truth behind it. Yah intended it for one thing, but man extended it beyond what Yah set the borders for. All right, family. I spent too much time on here. I'm only supposed to do 30 minutes. I was trying to keep it short, but oh man, this is really deep. But again, go back and read the papers if you want some more insight on what I discussed, and you'll be enlightened. All right. So thank you all for the support as always. Thank you for the prayers. I'm praying for you too. If there's anything that KHM can do to serve you as a community, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com and give us an opportunity to do our ministry, which is to serve y'all. All right. Love you, family. Thank you for watching. Peace and shalom. Shalom, shalom.